Hey, this is Crunk Chocolate here. I figured with the middle of the season here, some people, they might be like, hey, I'm going to take a little break. Not us. You know how we do. We love connecting, collaborating. It's our thing. I figured for the teams, us top brilliant teams in the top seven. Let's chat with each other. Let's see how things are going, how we're feeling. There's a little camaraderie at the top of the table. So I am here talking Aston Villa with Conan Doherty of the Villa Podcast, not a Villa Podcast, the Villa Podcast. I love that energy. How's it going?
That was a very cheeky name, too, wasn't it? Yeah, it's quite the arrogant step to take that name for your podcast, isn't it? But I couldn't believe there was none. We started the podcast in 2020 when the whole world locked down, and I thought, forget this. I just want to sit and talk about Villa. I'm going to do it. I've got nothing else to do. And I couldn't believe there was no podcast called the Villa Podcast. So I thought, if no one else is going to do it, I'll do it.
Yeah, I love it, especially when something is up like that. I do a wrestling podcast, just real quick. But our podcast name is Your Favorite Wrestling Podcast. Because that wasn't taken. I was like, how's that not taken? And that the whole especially when people are flipping through and trying to find names of podcasts, because there's so many podcasts in the world, you have to have something that goes, oh, and if it says the Villa Podcast, I'm like, okay, click.
Do you know I have a Seth Rollins t-shirt in the house? I caught it. They were featuring live in Dublin. We were at the event. I was there with my nephew. He's obsessed with wrestling. And Seth Rollins chucked it into the crowd, and I grabbed it. And I felt a little hand behind me. I don't know if it was a kid trying to get the t-shirt. I didn't look. Nope, I just ripped the t-shirt down and took it from nephew.
I love it. No, congratulations. Yeah, oddly enough, Seth Rollins is from the same city I live in. I'm from. Yeah,
so
very small world. Yes. Well, tell us a little bit more about the Aston Villa Podcast or the Villa Podcast.
The Villa Podcast, yeah, it's. I don't know if we intended it being the way it is, but a lot of people come to it and they say it's funny. Like they seem to love the. I don't know if you know the word crack. Well, in this context, in Ireland and in the UK, like the word crack, yeah, it's the Irish word CRAIC, so it basically means fun. They seem to enjoy the crack or the fun with it. To me now, it's become a bit of therapy, I would say, because after games, and when we started it was 2020, and that season started well. It was just after the season they just stayed up. Like they finished 17th. They stayed up basically on goal difference, and so it started well, but then it quickly dipped. Grealish got injured, then we lost Grealish, and then we signed Steven Gerrard. So a lot of these games, and this has basically been my whole life supporting Aston Villa, a lot of it has been miserable. So this podcast came along and it just became a release after every game. And it's gotten to the stage now where if we're delayed in recording, my wife knows that I haven't recorded yet because she can tell I've got some pent up energy, and the difference between me after that hour of just letting it go. It's an honest podcast. It's well structured. It's structured in a way that I think people will enjoy. We give out awards, but a lot of the awards are for bad performances, basically. But it's just a way of keeping tabs on what's going on, and we find players, although we don't really find them. If we did, the podcast would be doing a lot better. But so yeah, people seem to enjoy that aspect of it, and yeah, we certainly enjoy it as well. We get a good laugh no matter what happens.
Well, I mean, connecting with players is tough. I mean, especially where are is it just you and your show, or it sounds like you have a co-host?
Yeah, so it's me and my brother. So again, sort of stumbled into this. When I started this podcast, I had a plan that it was going to be interviews. I was going to bring on different people from different fan bases, like what we're doing right now. I was going to bring in different people from different Villa podcasts, not just the Villa podcast. And So I had this idea of a format, but then I did it with him the first one just to practice, and we enjoyed it. And then we decided to do a second one, and then suddenly we got into a real rhythm, and we felt like they were getting stronger and better, and we started to understand each other a bit more as co-hosts, and we've just kept that the same, so much so now that I'm sort of afraid to break it up. I feel like it would be a weird show now if he wasn't there or I wasn't there, or we introduced a third party. So it's just when you have something that you think is good, you don't really want to tamper with it. It's sort of like Aston Villa right now.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, nice little like segue transition. You are good at this show thing. I see you. And I would like to start off with talking about your place in the table. I feel like that's a pretty easy spot to start. And Aston Villa ahead of us right now, honestly. Yeah, looking good. Things are sitting pretty for you in third in the Premier League. I know it's a long time, a lot of season left, but let's just look how you are sitting where you are, viewing at third. It's pretty high. You might not be on the tippy top of the mountain, but you got a very nice view right now. How are you feeling about
Oh,
it?
it's a I'm feeling amazing. Like I can't honestly, if you could see my work productivity level, my real life work over the last few weeks, it's ridiculous the little amount I'm getting done. I've got a few tabs open that I just don't close anymore, and one of them is just a Google search for the Premier League table, and I just
You look
every
at it
so
whenever
often
you're
I just
feeling
click
down.
into it. Yeah, it just looks
Love it.
great. Like it's unbelievable, and it's not even. Sometimes I used to go into the Premier League table, and then you'd be counting how far away you
Hmm.
are from the
Hmm.
bottom and how many more points you need who's coming up next. Now it's just we're actually at a stage because Man City have a blank game week now as well. We're no matter what happens in our next game, we're going to be ahead of Man City at Christmas. And if you had have offered that to me at the start of the season, I would have said, yeah, things are going
I
pretty
love
good.
it.
I would have thought if we're ahead of Man City, we're going all right.
I, hey, kudos. Truly, the match against you guys, uh, in it's not really even this season. Oftentimes playing Aston, you guys frustrate the hell out of the squad and of me. You just always had a team of just like workers, and they come in there and they game what they don't make up in technical ability, they make up in heart and focus, determination. Now you're starting to get those players, they're becoming who you hoped they would become. You've brought in some saucier players that are adding finesse and helping some of those other players who had the little nods of creativity. They're able to kind of like free themselves. Like Ollie Watkins and Musa Diaby, that combination is like super scary. Obviously, you got Amy Martinez in the post, the shit talker, the rebel rouser. I love that dude. He's the type of guy when he's on your team, you love him. You are willing to like run through a wall with him. If you have to face him, it's just like that little son of a bitch. I hate him so much.
Yeah,
But
we
oh yeah, go for it.
we spoke about this on the show during the World Cup last year. I know it's actually the anniversary of the World Cup final today that
Yes.
Emmy Martinez was
Yes.
so influential in. And my brother actually said, because of the nature of the World Cup, people who don't really watch football as much, they tune in for the big games. And he said, people in my circle of friends now who don't even like football, they all know three things about it now: that Ronaldo is good, Messi is good, and Emi Martinez is a prick. and,
Yes.
and you almost take a bit of
Hell
pride in that,
yeah.
don't you?
Oh man, that's great. Well, my next question is, there's a term in American sports at the end of the season. Who is your MVP, the most valuable player? Usually it goes to like the best paid player, but most valuable doesn't necessarily mean the person who is being paid the most on the squad. It's just who is that key figure in your squad that is most important so far this season. And to you, I ask, Who is that for Aston Villa?
Yeah, I think it's Douglas Luiz, centre midfielder,
Uh,
former Man City player.
uh,
15 million. I mean, you wouldn't even wipe your asses with 15
I
million, and you
miss
gave
that
away
dude
your
so
best
much,
player.
so much.
Uh, and the growth he's gone through, and it obviously shows as well. I mean, you've got a good coach and a good manager of a good system. Like I know he was never going to play enough games for Man City to meet the work permit criteria, so they were sort of stuck there. And then when he was playing at Villa initially, I know he had a buyback clause for a few years, but it just wasn't at that level at that stage. But over the last year, it's just been
Hmm.
incredible. Like I was at a stage last year under Gerrard where I was thinking, I mean, we were signing Dendonker, and I was like, yeah, Villa need him in the team. Villa need a breaker of play, just someone to spoil the other team. And then you get a new manager in, you get somebody who knows what he's doing, you get somebody who boils it down this simply. He says, why don't we just pass the ball to each other? And we create chances, and then
Revolutionary.
suddenly Douglas, unbelievable. I never thought of it myself. And Douglas Luiz suddenly his stock went
Hmm.
right up through the roof, and he's just running the show now. He missed a game against Brentford there through suspension, and it was painful to watch because everything goes through him. He's a set piece master. He's chipping him with goals, his penalties he hasn't missed yet. He's holding himself with that sort of MVP swagger now as well. And like Ezri Konsa at centre back, I would have thought could have been a shout for that as well. But actually, we've since moved him out to right back to bring in Diego Carlos, and it turns out we didn't need Ezri Konsa there. Like we're doing pretty all right without him as well out in the right. I still prefer to see him in the middle, but just in terms of players we can't do without, I think it's Douglas Luiz. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, such a talent, and I there aren't many players that City have had either in their academy or on the first team that have left, and I've truly wanted them back. He's the person I remember seeing the transfer confirmation that he was going, and I was no, no,
really.
no, yes, because
Yeah,
there's a personality, a toughness that he brings that Pep didn't want. And that's not his. That wasn't his energy. That is very much now his energy. We very much need a Douglas Luiz type of dude in there right next to Rodri because Rodri is trying to be Douglas Luiz and trying to be a tough dude. He needs to untuck that shirt.
yeah,
He needs to untuck that shirt. It's not working for him. He's getting sent off every 3 matches. It's insane. He's not. I don't know. It's been a transition. We're not here to talk about Rodri. We're here to talk about Douglas Luiz. Yeah, he's a baller, and the fun. His hair changes all the time. Yeah, and now that you guys are playing well and everyone's playing well, his personality really can shine because he is kind of that dude and he does carry himself like he's that guy. He's a leader, and you're able to see it when teams are
yeah.
winning. When teams aren't winning, it kind of looks like he's being an asshole.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, and we've had enough times where we were so frustrated with Douglas Luiz as well, but now that things are going well, he is driving the
Mm-hmm.
standards. I know Dean Smith, the manager who brought him to Aston Villa, was talking about him recently, where he just met him this season and he didn't realize that his English had come on so much as well, which it wasn't that strong under Smith when he first brought him in, and you can tell there was an interview that Douglas Luiz did before the Man City game, before like Villa were going into 2 games against Man City and Arsenal, and this was not on my radar at all. But Douglas Luiz, the guy at the heart of our team, had said, like we want to try and win these games. We want to show that we can compete. And like I know the season had started well even before those games, but I hadn't had my ambitions fixed that highly. But when you have somebody who's your best player driving things from the middle, saying that it's very
Yeah,
infectious.
definitely. It's yeah, I mean, I'm happy to hear that you are enjoying him, but yeah, it makes me. He is the only one of the few, yeah, the only player where I'm like, man, that would have been nice. Don't you remember Douglas Luiz? Because
Yeah, it would have been so nice now as well because obviously Calvin Phillips thing isn't working
yes,
out, and Gundogan's
mhm,
gone. I'm not sure what he feels about Nunez, but it's just there's such an opportunity there, especially with De Bruyne injured. Such an like we you went into the Villa match and you had Stones and
It's
Akanji, I think, were both in midfield, and Rico Lewis was
yeah,
further ahead of
it
them. It
was
was
bad.
Jesus. If ever you would have used Douglas Luiz, it would have
And
been then.
it was interesting because I was I came to my show, bros, and I was like, man, we just showed up so defensive. And they were like, "What do you mean defensive?" I was like, "What do you mean? Why do I have to explain my look?" Well, yeah, they're defensive players, but the style, well, yes, our the way that we play is going to be the way that we play, but we have defenders in these positions. We can't really be attacking. Yeah, we played right into your hands. It was I want Pep to trust our play because either way we're gonna lose. Like if we're gonna lose, I'd much rather lose like a 4-3 than a 1-0 than a 2-1. Let's go out with a bang. Let's have some fun. Let's watch some beautiful football. Let's,
Yeah.
if that's what's gonna happen, I don't know. It's we're we're having a nice long hard look at ourselves in the mirror this season, and it's been fun because our show is all on its vibes this season. We still believe we're going to come through at the end and win because that's just what we've done the last couple of seasons. But I was expecting this ride to be a little smoother.
Yeah, but it's nice. It's a nice dimension, and I find myself listening to more Man City content because of that. Like I think I just associated under the Pep Guardiola era, just it being, for the want of a better word, too
Yeah.
easy for them. They would just
Oh, you don't
show
have
up,
to
and when
parse
they wanted
words.
to, they would put their
I'm not
foot
sensitive.
on the yeah, no, but like that is it, and it felt like it was getting a little boring for
Yeah,
me. Whereas now, I still think Man City are going to win the league, but now at least there's a bit of adversity
yeah,
for them to overcome, and it's even more interesting than just them and Liverpool
yeah.
going at it. There's just falling back, they're dropping points to teams they
Yes.
shouldn't, and then there's something endearing to hear Man City podcasters and broadcasters just going through the same emotions that I would go through with Villa.
We are
They're
human.
coming on. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and they're saying the words "we are shit," and it's like, oh my god, this is class. It's like I'm seeing myself in these guys, and like it's like when Ivan Drago in Rocky Four got cut, and I was like, he's cut. He's not a machine. He's not a machine. He's a man, and like this is what I see now with these
Oh, I
guys.
love it. I love it. That's what I tell people to embrace the fact that we are like the evil empire, and a
Yeah.
lot of the fans can't conceptualize that it's not a bad thing when I say it. Like we just are who we are. We the appearances, the winning, all that other stuff. I won't talk about 115 because it's silly anyway. But it's just like we are who people think we are. We're the bad guys in a Disney show. Like, come on now. It is what it is. Embrace it. Have some fun. It just will make the whole being the evil empire aspect easier if you just. But also, I enjoy wrestling, so I can embrace the being the heel, where it's just like, boo me, you suck too. Fine, this is what we're doing. I'll do it. Fine.
Yeah. And like, don't underestimate how quickly another team, even an Aston Villa, who've come up from the Championship had a few years just in the doldrums, and then when it's going well, don't underestimate how quickly they will step in. They will gladly step into the bad guy's shoes as well, and then tell everyone else to shut up and suck it. And how do you like that? And like, look at Emi Martinez, what
Yes,
a legend
I
he is. Like,
love
they
it.
will embrace it as much as
I
they want.
love
Yeah.
it. Yes, that's we we have too many teams where they're trying to be these like cute football boys, and sometimes you need those dudes who are just gonna punch you in the face, and I like those. And this is a figurative punch in the face. I'm not saying go punch people in the face.
That's for you, Rodri. Are you listening?
Yes, Rodri, stop it. No more choking. No more tripping. Relax. As I asked, who do you feel is your team's MVP? Who on the squad do you feel has been lackluster?
I feel like Matt Cash has been very lackluster, and I don't know if even that's a boring choice now because he's actually lost his place. I expected him to lose it a bit quicker, if I'm being honest. I thought they were looking at Konza on the right hand side. I thought they would have done that earlier, even though again I don't particularly like it, but it's Konza's so good that he can play out there, and you don't have to do with Matt Cash. And Matt Cash is just a bit. I describe him as agricultural. It's just
Yes, heard.
everybody everybody in the team has so much
Yes,
composure and finesse, and then he seems a bit basic, and he wants to just get stuck in, and then it's so stark when he had to play right wing, and he's done it a few times now. And he had to do it yesterday against Brentford when he plays further up the pitch. He can't take the ball in those areas. He can't take it. He's back to goal. He gets in everyone's way, and when he gets. I don't even want to say half a chance. It's like a quarter of an opportunity. He will
yes,
just take a
just
shot from
smash
anywhere,
it.
and he's not. Yeah, he's not a good shooter. I don't know where he's gotten this habit into his head. So he's definitely been the most frustrating this year. But I'd say, like, you're right to describe Musa Diaby as saucy and like he's so. Like I was going to say, so
Hey,
sexy he
I
is in
like it.
general, but he also is as a footballer. Like, I mean, he looks $1 million, and at the start of the season, he was playing so well. I think twice I compared him to. I'm very conscious of the comparison, but I was like, he's like Messi light. It's,
Yes,
he's like a bad version of Messi, which is the best
right.
compliment I could give him. But but he found himself a little lost now at the minute, and I think maybe it's not been helped by because Villa are going so well. Teams are setting up a bit more defensively, and I don't think he's enjoying playing right up front when teams are crowding them out that much. I think he'd prefer to be out wide where Bailey's having so much joy. Like Watkins can handle it. Watkins is physical. Watkins can take a ball in any sort of direction, but Diaby's just going through a bit of a moment at the minute, not a nice one, and he's lost his place and he got his chance again yesterday because of a few injuries, but didn't inspire really. So I've just got my eye on him. I have no doubt that he's going to turn it
Yeah.
around, but at the minute he's letting me down a little bit.
Yeah, there's going to be a transition for him. The intensity, especially his style, it really is kind of the physicality. I'm sure is definitely getting to him a little bit. And he came from a league that is
Yeah.
also physical, but that's more physical in the defensive aspect where they're coming in for crazy tackles and stuff like that. It's not where every move is a grind and that wears
Yeah,
on
yeah.
players. So, cool. Thoughts on the manager, Unai Emery? I am very interested to hear what you think because I am very fond of him as a manager.
Oh, like this man has, and I'm not being dramatic. This man's changed my life. It's unbelievable. Like, how much more I enjoy my weeks now, and like the lack of dread I have coming to the weekend. I look forward to watching Villa matches now. It's because they're always going to create chances. I mean, we were sort of laughing, thinking. I said earlier about how he just simplified the thing by saying, "Why don't we pass the ball to each other?" Like, genuinely, what he's done, and sometimes it's just vertical passing up the pitch. It's as simple as why doesn't our defender pass to the midfielder, and why doesn't he turn around and pass it to one of our forward players? And Villa are getting away with this. Like teams don't seem to be able to figure it out. And it's so obviously it's so meticulously prepared and the high line. I mean, this is the other thing since I've been supporting Villa, which is a long time now, since '94. I don't feel like they've ever had an identity. Do you know the way you hear Spurs fans say the Spurs way or the West Ham way? I'm not even sure what they are, but at least they say it. At least it's a thing. I don't know what the Villa way is, but now I do. Like I can. This is the first time where I can really see an identity with the club, and it's because the club's been built around this one man as well. It's the best thing they could have done. But this high line's incredible. The coaching's gone into it. No matter who's playing there, they're able to catch teams offside, like double the what the team most effective team is doing, catching people offside, and then they're able to squeeze up the pitch. They're able to play with that high intensity, and then they're able to just make these vertical passes, and every time they create a chance. I saw a stat that he's never had a 0-0 in the Premier League under Arsenal or Aston Villa, and I well believe it. I think he got a bit of bad press
Oh,
at
big
Arsenal,
time.
and I really
Yes.
and it's not even hindsight. At the time, I remember thinking, this is so strange. Like there was obviously a touch of I don't know want to say xenophobia, but like he was made a joke character because he said, good evening. He was polite after interviews, and he was replacing Wenger, so things were toxic there anyway. And look at the team he had. Honestly, you go back and look at the team. It is a disgustingly bad team. It was unbelievable, and he got them to 70 points. He got them to fifth place, and he got them to the Europa League final. He actually did quite well, and it took Arteta till his fourth season to actually match the amount of points that Emery got. But Arteta, because he was well loved at the club, he was given a bit more time, and he was also allowed to clear out all that rubbish that Emery had inherited under Wenger. So I feel like he actually did well at Arsenal. He's obviously come with a great CV, and the job he's done here now is just crazy and so likable and so smart, and it's just great. It's just great knowing that there's somebody so smart and so dedicated to looking after something that you care about that much.
Yes, I love that. Winter transfer, it's coming up in a few weeks. I don't know if there are any rumors going on with Aston Villa. Maybe there's a player leaving. Maybe there's someone coming. What are the rumblings you have been hearing?
Yeah, it's such an interesting one. There's nothing concrete at the minute. There's always a few strikers that are thrown into the mix, but the thing about Villa, and you sort of touched on it earlier about how much they work and how City don't like playing them because they come to battle really, and Villa are in such a sweet spot at the minute where they not only have players who are willing to just die for the cause, but they're good players, they're decent players, right? But they're not too good to not think that they have to work their asses off every single game. So they have that humility because they aren't just at the very top level. They're not at the same level as Arsenal or City or Liverpool. But in a way, that's a strength now because every single play and every single game, the players are just committing to it so honestly and so wholeheartedly. And I mentioned this on our podcast recently. It's such a refreshing thing to have a team that they don't seem to be bitching and moaning at each other. Mm-hmm. They'll make the run, and if the ball doesn't come, they'll just run back. And they'll run back, and then they'll make the run again forward, and they'll just do it. They won't stop. They won't throw their hands in the air. They won't turn away. They're not showy to the crowd. They're just committing to every play, and I think it's obviously made in the image of the manager as well. But that's why the question you're asking is so interesting now, because you're at a stage where you've got something so good, and now it's like, what do you drop into this now to make it better or potentially upset it a little bit? And I don't know. I don't even know how I feel about transfers. I think they're in a great position to sort of push on now from a position of strength. But I think they do need maybe another option in attack, and they'll probably be in the market for a right back, I assume, because like Matt Cash is what I mentioned. I think that will be their main priority, and they also just need a backup goalkeeper because if Emi Martinez isn't there, you're going from one of the best keepers in the league to definitely the worst keeper in the league in Robin Olsen. So it's just too big a drop off. You can't and Martinez is always subject to a yellow card every game because of the way he plays. So he's going to get suspensions. So you just can't be dropping off that much space if you're looking to compete for the top four,
especially for your respective. And that is a perfect lead into the final question of this episode. How do you see the second half of the season going? Do you see yourself staying in the top four, getting to the Champions League? Is that too hard to hold on to? Would you be happy landing back in the Europa League? You go.
What's that song? Is it James? Oh, sit down, oh, sit down. It says, if I hadn't seen such riches, I could live with being poor. I mean, it's hard now to think about qualifying for the Europa League when you're at the top of the mountain. Like you say, you're
dream high.
Yeah,
let's go.
You're offering me a deal now to go a little bit down the mountain and set up camp there, and I'm like, but I'm up here already. Why can't we just stay? But it's going to be tough. Honestly, I have to get my head around that. This isn't a good start to the season. It's not a flash in the pan. This has been since Emery's come in. Like this is the norm. You know, I think there's a lot of analysis out there that suggesting Villa will revert to the norm, but since Emery's been here, like this has been the standard. Like this is what they've been doing. I think in the calendar year 2023, only City have more points than them. So like they've been consistently doing it since the start of January. I remember I did a piece for a bookmaker. Actually, we got flown over to Manchester. It was a great little
Oh,
gig,
nice.
but we got flown over to Manchester in the overlap studios that Gary
Hmm.
Neville and Roy Keane and Jamie Carragher shoot in. And we just had their season preview. And I remember saying at the time about how Emery points per game he only got since like obviously the end of October, but points per game he would have finished in the top four with Villa. And now they've added players like Yuri Tielemans, like Nicolo Zaniolo, like Diaby, so they've added in some more
Yes.
options. And I was thinking, like, you know, what will they do this year now? Not only with those added players in, but a full preseason. And I do have to just sort of back the team. No,
Yes.
I have to say that it's hard to see. Like they're not going to keep pace with City and Liverpool and Arsenal. Like people always say to me, why not? And it's very simple. It's like I can see City and Liverpool, especially winning more games than Villa. They will. Like that will happen. But I think they can do enough to stay ahead of Spurs and Newcastle and United. Like they're not teams to be afraid of. If I look at those teams and break them down individually, like would I change them for the Villa team? I don't think I would. So they're in the position now. They're like I say, they've got the confidence and they've got the targets. They're even Emmy Martinez is talking about the title. You know, even though I saw they got the equaliser in the 77th minute yesterday, and you can see at the far end of the pitch, McGinn's there, sort of around centre midfield, and he just waves everybody back. You know, because it's only an equaliser. We're not here to get a point. We can beat Brentford. Let's get back and get set up, and like even just that is just a total difference to the Aston Villa that I've known. You know, we've gotten the draw. Let's go and get the second goal here and get the win, which is exactly what they did, and they've been dogging it out. They've been hammering some teams when they get the opportunity. They've been beating big teams. I really don't know what more they have to do. Like they've done this over 17 games this season. They've done it over all of the calendar year. I think it would be actually, dare say it, a little stupid of me to not back them to get into the top four this year.
I mean, you're not wrong. What I do love about your squad is you have a bunch of players who are at that age, very important, where managing is their manager and how they are managed, handled, taken care of, built as footballers is very important because they're in that 24 to 28 range, which is their prime-ish and can really help them grow. It's really the difference between being a 25 million and a 45, 50, $60 million player. Uh, and I'm just going through it. Ollie Watkins, like Kamara, Buendia, like you said, who you just brought in, Zoniolo, Diaby, even Tillemans, who he plays old man style, but he's only 26. So that fits.
Mm.
Douglas Luiz, uh, even Paul Torres, like so many players that maybe haven't reached heights expected when they were younger, but under Unai and with a direction and the confidence, I really do see them becoming great players and your club doing great things. I I enjoy the chaos under it because it makes our jobs easier because usually that's kind of the problem with the races is we're beating people and we always occasionally drop points, but it's Liverpool and Arsenal. They're the ones who also are knocking other teams over. And that's what makes things difficult for us. If 2 through 12 can always possibly beat each other at any time, in the end, that does help us out. So, I mean, I appreciate you. I want you guys to do all the winning, all the chaos. I said 2 weeks ago in an episode, hey, the only people who enjoy City doing well right now is Aston Villa because they're just hanging out and happy to be here. It's great. It's great. Yeah. Well, please plug your show one more time. Let people know where they can find you on socials and listening apps.
Yeah, if you just type in the Villa podcast, you should find us there on Instagram and on Twitter, and yeah, we're on YouTube as well. But like it's an audio product, so we try to keep it to that. Don't know why you was just sort of decided that way, but there's a lot of YouTube offerings out there. But yeah, and actually a lot of unbelievably, a lot of non Aston Villa fans listen to the podcast as well. So I'm always keen for people to know that because I suppose we're playing a different team every week. So by that very
Mhm.
nature, it's a different podcast every week. We are talking about Villa, obviously, but we're always touching on other clubs, and we have a little general section at the end as well that people seem to enjoy. So it's a bit of fun. It's a bit of crack, the
The
good
good
crack,
crack.
and it's yeah, and people like it. So yeah, check it out if you want.
Great. Yes. Well, thanks again for coming on Shady Gang. One more time, give it up for Conan. No, there we go. There we go. There we go. They're a little troublesome sometimes. Oh well. Shady Gang, look forward to more of these episodes. You know the vibes. Shady Gang, Shady Gang, Shady Gang.